Okay. Well, it began first in 2010, two academic years ago, and we're now in our third year of running the course. Well, the course originally grew out of a project called Inclusive Learning and Teaching Project, and that was where the university was thinking about how inclusive it was, not just for the students. So a lot of students who are here come from very different backgrounds, and it's important that our learning and teaching is as inclusive as possible, so it represents the way that they learn and is sensitive to the backgrounds that they have. And as an added extra, Brendan felt that the university could do more to encourage the citizens of the city, the people who live in Sheffield, to access and take part in the course, not only or in the university, not only because it would be good for them, but because also it would be good for our students, it would be good for our academics to understand that university doesn't just exist within these walls, that university has a role to play, has much to learn from the city and its people. And so equally, Brendan wanted to work with a group of people who traditionally weren't going to get the opportunity to go to university. So people with disabilities, people who are users of mental health services or have disabilities, are heavily stigmatised often, and for various reasons, economic reasons, social reasons. Education and access to education are things that are often quite blocked off, certainly to university. So we thought we were both very excited by the idea that people would be able to come in and get an opportunity really of higher education. And so that was a really crucial part of the course as well, that people were actually students of the university, not just people who came in for a day but got a U card and got a computer account and all the things that we get when we're students here. So that equality of participation was really important. So as a teacher, you have to be very dynamic about how you present the material. So if I was to lecture undergraduate students in their first, second or third year, I'd be very I might, for example, spend 50 minutes with a PowerPoint presentation, talking through the slides and analysing key passages from text or films, or looking closely and analysing text, which is kind of what we do in English literature. However, in this case, the overview that I would provide will probably be more general and probably more specific to people's lives a little bit. So, have you had an experience of this sort of idea, of this sort of representation of Sheffield, for example, for Storying Sheffield? And just making sure that people can be creative in their responses, not just simply writing down notes off the board, but be more interactive, making sure that there's lots of activities so that people's attention spans aren't tested, and making sure that there's lots of doing. So it's kind of thinking and doing, and that's what the course is about really. That the first 6, 7, 8 weeks of the course, we have people coming in speaking for maybe 40 minutes to an hour, and then people do what they've been talking about, if you see what I mean. So rather than simply writing about it, as we would on an undergraduate degree, people actually do stuff. So when we do theatre, people learn about the theory of theatre, for example, and place, or theories of theatre and place, drama and place. Rather than writing to reflect on it, they perform together. So when I do work with film, we'll analyse the films as I would with undergraduate students. Then I ask the students to think about how they would formulate a filmic narrative, a visual narrative of Sheffield or of their lives and that kind of thing. So people are thinking analytically, creatively, and critically the way we want them to think at university, but are doing so in a more practical way. And that is a leveller really for people from lots of different backgrounds. So it's important that as a teacher you're aware of the diversity of backgrounds that it's about different kinds of narratives, about everyday narratives, and about representing and celebrating the diversity of those narratives, rather than people telling a biography where at the end everything is fine, because that's quite a disempowering model of narrative really for people. When we did the workshop on film, we were looking at the ways in which images can construct narratives in interesting ways. And we were looking at ways that film narratives don't have to be about spectacular stories, that they can be about everyday life. And so I then got him to workshop and work with a couple of our undergraduate students, and they asked him to talk about a journey that he'd made, a significant journey in his life. And he talked about the time where he was feeling particularly low, and he got on the bus and got the bus right to the edge of the Peak District. And when he got off the bus, he was really far at the end of the line. He went for a walk, and then he realised he didn't have any bus fare. So he was about 15 miles outside of Sheffield with no means of getting back, and he was feeling really low, and it started to get dark. So he thought, right, I'm going to walk. And as he walked, the sun came up as he approached Sheffield, and he just saw the sun rising, and suddenly things seemed to be happier in his life. And that was the end of the story. And it's very powerful in that when it was represented visually, filmically, it contributed to the film that he made. It wasn't the same story, but it influenced the film that he made. And it was very much about drawing strength from the environment and from the space to think and the space to feel and the space to explore yourself. So that kind of, so he went from a position of saying I don't have any stories to tell, to telling that very powerful but very simple story of everyday life. And that's the kind of engagement that you're looking for really from students, acknowledging that stories exist outside of that grand narrative.